The upcoming November elections in the United States are overshadowed by the coronavirus crisis. The number of people who died in the outbreak is growing rapidly. Thousands of U.S. citizens have fallen victim to the virus, disrupting the campaign process. But despite the outbreak, it is counting down to the presidential election to be held on November 3rd. Will U.S. President Trump be elected a second time? Or will his Democratic rival, Joe Biden, take back the White House and Congress? The epidemic rages across the United States. The Republican and the Democratic fronts have stepped up their election work. Voters in America will decide on November 3rd whether Donald Trump remains in the White House for another 4 years. Trump is campaigning to take the lead in the most anomalous presidential race in American history. As the rivalry escalated, the leaders exchanged harsh statements.
We're running against a radical left ideology. Their messenger is Sleepy Joe. He doesn't know it's his message. He has no idea what the message is. But he's going to do whatever they tell him to do. You know it. Because he's not all there.
We don't need a cheerleader, Mr. President. We need a president, Mr. President. Mr. President, please listen to your public health experts instead of denigrating them. Do your job, Mr. President.
In the grip of the epidemic, many elements can affect election results, ranging from how voters will vote to whether critical states can take control of the corona problem.
We have this big pandemic going on. You know, someone who knows what they're doing, who can help the people. Most importantly, you know, I'm a mom, I have children going back to school, and I feel uncomfortable with it. So, you know, it's important that the person that we pick, they know what they're doing and they can lead the proper way.
I would like to see as much in-person voting as possible. If you have to vote by absentee ballot, you have to. But it should be strictly regulated and only in certain cases.
Some American experts argue that the Democratic electorate is more concerned about coronavirus, that they may not go to the polls, which would benefit Trump. The votes cast by mail in the 2020 election are extremely important. Voting by mail will perhaps determine the fate of the election result. That's because 70% of American adults want to vote by mail. But Trump is against the vote by mail approach, alleging collusion. Democrats think otherwise.
They've not really ever liked the Postal Service because they always want to find a way to make money off of something and they want to privatize. But now, at a time of a pandemic, you would think they'd have a little sensitivity. But so obsessed are they to undermine absentee voting that this is their connection there. So the president says he's not putting up any money for absentee voting, and he's not putting up any money for the Postal Service, undermining the health of our democracy.
Nancy Pelosi said that the Democrats want to, and the White House are still miles apart on stimulus.
Well, they're right, and it's their fault. They want $3.5 billion for something that'll turn out to be fraudulent. That's election money, basically. They want $3.5 billion for the mail-in votes, okay, universal mail-in ballots. $3.5 trillion. They want $25 billion for the post office. Now, they need that money in order to have the post office work so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. Now, in the meantime, they aren't getting there. By the way, those are just two items. But if they don't get those two items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting because they're not equipped to have it. If we don't make a deal, that means they don't get the money. That means they can't have universal mail-in voting. They just can't have it.
The formula for Biden's victory is coming down to critical states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, where Hillary Clinton lost in the 2016 election. If Biden wins those swing states, it could make it easier for him to win the 2020 presidential election. Biden is leading in the polls in those 3 states. Texas, Georgia, Florida, and Ohio. These states are known as Trump's stronghold. In the election in 2016, Hillary Clinton was always ahead in the polls against their rival, Trump. But it was Trump who came out ahead in the tough election. The presidential election held in the United States on November 7, 2000 was also an election that was not forgotten for years. The votes in Florida were recounted due to objections in the contested election. After the 36 days, the result was unchanged. By a vote of 4-5, the Supreme Court declared Bush the winner of the election.
Good evening. Just moments ago, I spoke with George W. Bush and congratulated him on becoming the 43rd President of the United States.
Our country has been through a long and trying period, with the outcome of the presidential election not finalized for longer than any of us could ever imagine.
So what will change if Biden is elected in the 2020 presidential election? What about the foreign policy line that Biden and his team will follow? According to some experts, Biden is expected to adopt a policy in line with former U.S. President Barack Obama's foreign policy. Joe Biden played important roles in Afghanistan, Iraq, Ukraine, and even Cyprus during the Obama era. Biden was a longtime member of the Foreign Relations Committee when he was a senator from 1973 to 2009. During his speech at a university in New York in 2019, Joe Biden said, quote, "In my opinion, foreign policy is domestic policy, and domestic policy is foreign policy. They are deeply connected." He added that U.S. security was directly dependent on having the strongest possible network of partners and allies working with one another. So how will Turkish-American relations follow if Biden is elected president? The answer to this question is hidden in Biden's comments about Turkey and Obama-era U.S. Turkey relations. Biden, who has visited Turkey 4 times as vice president, has apologized to Turkey twice. His first apology came in October 2014. In a speech at Harvard University, he cited Turkey as the most problematic ally in the Middle East. Soon, Ankara's reaction came. Biden stepped back. He called President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and apologized. In August 2016, Joe Biden, U.S. Vice President of the era, was in Turkey for the second apology. The July 15 coup attempt was on the agenda. Biden said he was mortified by the late visit.
I came today for multiple reasons, but most of all, Mr. President, to express my personal condolences and the condolences of my country for the brutal, unconscionable attack on Turkey, the very spot where this democracy took root. The attempted coup went to the heart of who your people are: principled, courageous, and committed. And for a people who struggled so long to establish a true democracy, this was, from my perspective and the President's perspective, the ultimate affront. So my heart goes out to not just your government, but to the Turkish people.
Biden apologized. He said, quote, "We are with you as the United States."
That's why, Mr. President, you've known me for a while, that's why I wanted to personally be here and was asked by the President to personally be here to represent him, to tell you and all of your colleagues and your countrymen how very, very, very sorry I am, the President is, the American people are, for the suffering and loss you have endured.
Biden's visit also included the July 15 coup attempt, as well as the extradition of terror group FETÖ ringleader Fethullah Gulen from the United States.
Mr. President, it's not that we have any reason, and your people should know, any reason to protect Gulen or anyone else who, in fact, may have done something wrong. As a matter of fact, you recall, Mr. President, when Gulen sought refuge in America, the Bush administration denied it. He went to court. It was a court that overruled the President of the United States of America, allowing him to be there.
Another topic of debate in America is Joe Biden's health. Whether Biden, who will take over the post at the age of 78, if elected, will be able to lead the superpower is debated.
But you, on the other hand, sent your son over there to get a job and work for a gas company that he had no experience with gas or nothing, in order to get access to the public for the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he was.
So you're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that? No one has done that?
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. By the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I get up and no, let him go. Let him go. I suggested that we should have people in China at the outset of this event. And when it all started in Luhan province. We have over 120 million dead from COVID.
Biden's candidacy has been questioned amid growing gaffes. He is so close to tripping himself up at any moment. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden even said that he would defeat himself in the November election.
I'm prepared to say that I have a record of over 40 years and that I'm going to beat Joe Biden.
One of the concerns expressed about Biden is contact sickness and incidents of sniffing women's hair. He's not normal in the touchy-grabby sense, at least by today's standard. Joe Biden served as senator for 36 years. During his duties, he took part in many issues of close interest to Turkey. His scandalous remarks about Turkey in an interview with the New York Times in December during the election campaign garnered huge backlash.
He's the Erdogan of Turkey and a lot more. And so what I think we should be doing is taking a very different approach to him now, making it clear that we support opposition leadership, making it clear that we are in a position where we have a way in which was working for a while to integrate the Kurdish population who wanted to participate in the process in their parliament, et cetera, because we have to speak out about what we in fact think are wrong. He has to pay a price. He has to pay a price for whether or not we're going to continue to sell certain weapons to him. In fact, if he has the air defense system that they're flying F-15 through to see how they can try to figure out how to do it. So I'm very concerned about it. I'm very concerned about it. But I'm still of the view that if we were to engage more directly like I was doing with them, that we can support those elements of the Turkish leadership that still exist and get more from them and embolden them to be able to take on and defeat Erdogan, not by a coup, but by the electoral process.
Then addressed the issue of the Eastern Mediterranean. Biden said, quote, "It takes an awful lot of work for us to be able to get together with our allies in the region and deal with how we isolate his actions in the region, particularly in the Eastern Mediterranean, in relating to oil and a whole range of other things." These words give the impression that Biden is talking about an enemy, not a NATO partner. Biden's scandalous remarks drew harsh reaction from both the ruling party and the opposition. Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu responded to U.S. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden. Çavuşoğlu said Biden's remarks crossed the line.
Yani bugün gerçekten Türk milleti olarak biz bugün böyle dayatmaları kökten reddediyoruz. Dolayısıyla Türk milletini de tanımayan, cahilce yapılmış haddini aşan bir açıklama.
Donald Trump also took charge of his rival Biden as the presidential election approaches.
That's why he doesn't talk. He's shot. We got to say, look, one thing I've learned. Putin, President Xi of China, right? Kim Jong-un, Erdogan of Turkey. They are world-class chess players. We can't have a guy who's shot and in his best years wasn't very good. He wasn't very good. We can't have it. These guys are world-class chess players. They're all dreaming. They're all dreaming of Joe Biden. I'll tell you who's dreaming about him is Iran. If we win, and when we win, we are going to have a deal with Iran immediately. They're just waiting, hoping that Biden gets in.
Biden's comments about Turkey do not portray sunny skies for Turkish-American relations in the event he is elected president. Biden stresses that Turkey should be isolated in the eastern Mediterranean. He opposes the holding of nuclear weapons in Incirlik and Turkey's military operations in Syria. Biden is against Turkey's military operations in Syria and stated that the YPG-PKK was betrayed by the U.S. He favors sanctions if Turkey does not give up the S-400. And finally, Biden criticized the conversion of the Hagia Sophia into a mosque.
It is worth it because all said and done, flawed though we may be, imperfect though we may be, this country is worth fighting for.
Kamala Harris, 55 years old, a child of immigrants. Harris is the first woman of Indian and Jamaican descent to reach a position in U.S. politics that has long been reserved for whites only. Joe Biden picked Harris as his vice president. First support for Harris came from Hillary Clinton.
I still hope, especially with Kamala on the ticket, that the coverage of women running for president or vice president will be less sexist, less sensationalist, less trivializing. I told them that they would just have to, be ready for that and be able to ride through it.
Harris is the first woman of color to run for vice president. Experts see Biden's move as a move to win the black vote after the George Floyd incident, which brought the United States to its feet with his death. But Trump has been heavily critical of Harris.
As far as Kamala is concerned, she's a big tax raiser. She's a big slasher of funds for our military, and she's got a lot of difficult things that she's going to have to explain. Plus, she was very, very nasty to, one of the reasons that surprised me, she was probably nastier than even Pocahontas to Joe Biden. She was very disrespectful to Joe Biden, and it's hard to pick somebody that's that disrespectful. When she said things during the debates, during the Democrat primary debates, that were horrible about Sleepy Joe, and I would think that he wouldn't have picked her.
Although Harris is not considered young, she is a vigorous politician compared to the 77-year-old Biden. Last year, she was among those who submitted to the Senate a motion calling for the events of 1915 to be recognized by the United States as genocide. Where could a possible Biden presidency take Turkish-American relations? Biden's attitude towards Turkey, a country he has long been considered an expert in, should neither lead to hope nor expectation. Rather, a Biden presidency could plunge the relationship between the two NATO partners into darker depths. The November 3rd, 2020 election winner will take the presidential seat at the White House on January 20th, 2021. Biden's candidacy brings several historical comparisons to mind. If he wins, he might be compared with Republican George H.W. Bush, elected in 1992 after serving as Ronald Reagan's vice president during the 1980s. If Biden loses, Democrat Al Gore, who lost the Electoral College to George W. Bush in 2000 after 8 years as Bill Clinton's vice president, will be the point of comparison.